I I do these video recordings, and then like a minute in, I'm like, oh wait.
I know. I
I did
forget
one.
all that stuff.
Yeah, I did one with Tony, and I was just like a minute after us talking, like, okay, I should probably record.
It's the best. I remember when
Yeah,
I would do morning radio with the Hot Rod. He would never want to meet the DJs because he
really.
would say, "Yeah," until they were on the air. He would be like, "Steven, why don't you go in there and just let them know I'll come in when we're on the air?" Because he wanted all the energy to be genuine
Okay.
and in the moment. And he never wanted to like waste the good surprise. Like, do you remember what was that Adam Sandler movie, Big Daddy, where there was a surprise party and they're like, "Oh, we wasted the good surprise on you." He wanted that pop when he walked in the room
Right.
because you weren't gonna like we were on the road together doing comedy. So anybody that wanted us in the studio, they were all huge fans of his. So
Right.
he wanted that natural pop from them, and then we were off to the races. Well, he was off to the races. I was just there to watch. It was the coolest thing ever. How are you,
That's the
buddy?
way to
How are
do
you
it.
coping through all this?
Oh man, I'm good. You know, the first 3 weeks I was great. It's like, oh,
Yes.
this is awesome. I'm
Oh, this is
home.
the vacation I needed, and let's slow things down.
Yeah, yeah, totally. You know, I've been going out too much. I've been wasting too much money. You know, get to spend some time with the wife. That's great. You know, catch up
Yeah.
on some movies. We're
Yep.
what, like 5 weeks in now? I'm starting to shake a little. Like,
Yeah. I think everybody's in a similar boat.
yeah,
I really do. And I think that's why now, like as entertainers, people like us that can sort of help people get through this, now we have to step up.
yeah,
Now we got to be there for each other.
yeah. I think so, man. I think so. That's why I've been trying to do more of these video things. It's fun to, not just do the audio, but be able to see each other and talk. And,
Yeah.
I've been actually been blown away. I keep seeing people doing like collaborative things over Zoom and Skype with like
So cool.
yeah, one of my buddies is doing like cover songs where he'll sing, but then he'll have a guitar player from a band on like a little window, and then he'll have the drummer, and like they all just do like this really cool.
Oh, I haven't seen that. That's really cool. So they're a band that isn't under the same roof.
It's not even a band; it's just they're all friends from different bands, but they were like, "Hey,
I love that.
let's do a cover song." I was like, "Oh my god!"
That's the cool. I love like years ago they did this thing. It was called the Sunset Strip Music Festival,
Mm,
and for the inaugural year, they like paid tribute to Ozzy Osbourne.
nice.
So there were all of these legitimate rock stars on stage at the House of Blues that were just getting up and jamming and playing other rock star stuff. And then Ozzy came out and sang some songs, and it was the coolest thing ever to see like Slash play Led Zeppelin songs. I
Yeah,
just love stuff like that. I think it's the coolest thing ever.
yeah, they do this thing every year in Anaheim. There's a convention that happens out there called NAM.
I
It's
always wanted to go to that.
Yeah, dude, I go every year. It's pretty much where I've built my, I guess, what do you call it? Class list of all the guests I've had. Every time I get guests, it's usually from them. I'll hang
Oh,
out with them.
cool.
Yeah, I'll go. I usually go. I bring a bunch of booze.
That'll help meeting rock stars, I'm sure.
Yeah, I bring a bunch of booze, a few joints or something, and then hang out. And obviously look at all the instruments because I used to be a musician too, so I like
What did
looking
you
at.
play? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I sang in a band for like 10 years. And then I played keyboards. I play guitar and bass as well. So
Dude, you're way cooler than I am. That's awesome. That's
no,
really legitimately awesome. You know what I think's the coolest thing? Like, one of the best things I should say about being a comedian is when musicians come to the Comedy Store and they think what we do is cool. I'm like, what? No, you're the cool ones. It's it's so awesome.
I have that. That's actually become my thing at the store. It's interesting. Like I'll show up with one of my musician buddies, and then like everybody's just blown away that they're around each other. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's so good. Like
It's awesome.
I was hanging out there with Tony and during Kill Tony, and he was like, "Oh, I love 311." I'm like, I know Peanut. I'll bring him." And then like I brought him, and everybody's like, "This is incredible," and then, "This is awesome," and everybody's hugs, and I'm just like, this is what I live for. I want people to be
Yeah.
happy, you know.
Yep. Bring the joy, baby. The world needs it. It's the
Hell yeah.
best.
Hell yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you
no.
remember the first concert you ever went to? What got you in the music?
Oh, dude. Funny enough, what got me into music was getting kicked out of private school. I got
That's the
kicked out
most
of.
rock star thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I grew up, very strict, not listening to any kind of music that wasn't what my parents were listening to, which was, my mom was listening to a lot of Boney M's and the Bee Gees and
Yeah.
a lot of disco stuff. And then my dad the heaviest he would go was Led Zeppelin. He used to call that
Okay.
heavy metal. He was like, that's really heavy, but, it's good. I'm like, okay. And then once I got kicked out of private school, I went out with some money I had and I bought a bunch of metal tapes. I bought like Danzig and Pantera, Marilyn Manson, like anything I can get my hands on. I filled up one of those old school like little suitcases that you could put tapes in. I filled one of those up with all of the metal I could find.
All the scariest music in the world.
Yeah, everything I was told not to listen to, and then just becoming a huge fan and eventually buying a guitar. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I want to try it, and little by little, just start little cover bands. But the first concert, it's funny. The first concert I ever went to, I think, it was Huey Lewis and the News.
I would pay good money to see them right now. They killed it as far as I'm concerned. And from what I hear, I think they were like an old school bar band that took forever to pop. Dude, like legit musicians that were just making a living and knocking around bars and clubs forever, and then somehow it just broke through.
Yeah, and they were, legit performers. I saw them in Vegas with my father, and they were, halfway through.
Dude, you got to go to a concert with your dad?
Yeah.
That's
I got
awesome.
A couple of them went in. We did that. We did Steve Miller Band.
Another killers. I love that. That wasn't my generation, but for some reason, when I was in high school, whenever people got beer, they're like, "Let's listen to Steve Miller," and I don't know why, but I have so many memories to that music.
I loved it.
Cool.
And I was, even
too.
as a kid, 'cause I was real small when my father was listening to it. I was 7, 8 years old, 9 years old.
Yeah.
But it was still like fascinating to me. And so we saw, Huey Lewis, Steve Miller. My uncle took me to see Pink Floyd in '92.
Oh.
See Pulse.
Wow.
That was real cool. And then I ended up going to Woodstock '94.
What? Who headlined that show?
Oh man,
I
think it was Chili Peppers. Right? Yeah, a ton of bands. I know I saw Blind Melon, 9 Inch Nails. Chili Peppers. Just a bunch of Salt and Pepper.
Salt and Peppers here, dude. The '90s actually had some good music.
It had great music. And the '80s and I think we stopped making good music in like 2010. No, I'm kidding. There's still really great musicians making music. But those classic tunes, like I listen to stuff that comes out now that I listen to it because it pushes boundaries. Like, okay, it's really experimental and crazy, and it's not something I really want to show kids,
I'm glad that music is a mystery to me because I don't have such a critical ear.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like I've talked to people that have listened to so much music, like the only thing that like sort of sparks them is jazz or stuff that's really experimental because they've heard so much. I have such a
unlimited palette.
Ears. Yeah, where I'm like, dude, this is magic. What is this? Oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like to me, music is more than anything for me. It's a tool. Like it instantly can change my mood. And like one of the places where I love to listen to music most is like when I work out. Is it in the gym? And I'm like, oh, this is another form of motivation. It's incredible.
You listen to wrestler theme songs when you work out?
Dude, at one point, I forget who it was. I think it was one of Gabriel's buddies. Gave me every pro wrestler's theme song, and I had that for a while. And I had it back when I like knew how to make like a mix. I don't even know how to do that anymore. Back when I had an iPod, I would like have like Stone Cold's music or The Undertaker's when I'd walk into the gym. And I had a buddy, God rest his soul, that was like the ultimate meathead. Okay. And he did security in bars. And he would demand when he would enter a shift that they'd play Ric Flair's theme song when he would walk out on the floor. He was the absolute funniest dude ever. And if
That's
he
the
didn't
best.
pass away so young, he could have been a legit famous comedian.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, every once in a while I catch myself throwing on some wrestling tunes. I'm a I'm a wrestling nerd, so I watch it every week, and every once in a while, like my buddy was like, "Hey, the new Matt Riddle song is ridiculous. It's stupid. I don't like it." So I put it on, and I'm like driving, like I actually really like this. It sounds like Dr. Dre. So
really,
yeah,
dude, my buddy is like a world-class jazz drummer. He's awesome. He's just like one of my best friend's younger brothers. So I've known him for 20 years, and then we became friends because he loves comedy, and I got to see him. I was blown away by seeing him perform live. But in my brain, he's just my buddy Mark. But to the world, he's like Mark Juliana, the drummer. And to me, he's just
Mark.
My buddy. Because like I knew him when he was a kid before he was famous,
Yeah.
But I remember years ago him explaining what a musical genius Dr. Dre was, like talking about like the progression of beats and things like that. And I was like, I don't have that ear. I don't know why it's awesome. I just know it's awesome. Like
right.
The fine artist at the Comedy Store, Taylor Boss, that dude is an incredible artist. And if I knew more about art, I could explain why I liked his paintings, but I don't know why. I just go, that's awesome.
That's good. I mean, that's what makes you a consumer of entertainment, and also separates you from, to your craft, which is like like it's very easy to look at stand-up comedy and just think, I could do that. I'm funny with my friends. But
Yeah.
it's not that easy. It's not easy to get up on that stage, to look at the crowd, to read the room, to, have the setup and the punch. And there's craft to it. And maybe I don't know.
I think the most difficult thing about being a stand-up comic is the amount of patience it takes just to have your turn. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And like when people say, yeah, I could do that, I always encourage them. I'm like, you certainly can do that. And I will do anything in my power to help you have that opportunity. But are you ready to put in 10, 15, 20 years before anybody says yes?
Mm-hmm.
That's what separates people that do it professionally from the people that really could do it, but maybe just don't have, as who was it, Gorilla Monsoon used to say, the intestinal fortitude.
Fortitude.
Yeah, it takes more intestinal fortitude than it takes funny, in my opinion.
Well, that goes too for everything. That goes from music.
So.
Music.
I think so, right?
Like my band, we were a band for 10 years, and near the last couple years, that's when big things started happening. Like we were opening for bigger acts, we were touring, we were releasing albums, and like it took 10 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
And the same goes for like one of the professions I like is cooking, like chefs. You have to be a sous chef for like 12 years before you can even be considered to have, your own place or be considered a chef.
Yeah. So cool.
It's nuts, but it makes sense to me. Like some people get lucky in music and comedy, whatever. You get right place, right time, and you get that right push. But
I think that's got to be one of the scariest things if you get lucky in a business like that, because that has to be horrifying in a lot of ways. And let me explain what I mean. I guess it was almost 20 years ago, maybe 17 years ago, a bunch of stand-up comics at the Comedy Store. We all grew up loving sketch comedy, like Saturday Night Live. Like I love Bill Murray and Chris Farley and John Candy. Those guys weren't stand-ups, but they were the funniest people of their generation. So we were like, we want to do some sketches. And in that sketch group was this beautiful young lady. She was legitimately like a model that I guess had done some stand-up comedy, okay? And I'm not exaggerating. I don't want to, how do I say this? There was a very prestigious magazine, an industry publication, that named her one of the top 10 comics to watch. And she had been on stage, and I'm not exaggerating, I think 2 or 3 times.
Yikes.
And she was voted one of the top 10 comedians to watch. And she did her showcase as one of the top 10 comedians to watch. And I think she was sandwiched in between Jim Norton and Judah Friedlander. And I was like, good luck. Good luck following Jim Norton in 2000 at any time, but
Yeah.
a hungry young Jim Norton, and
Oof.
you don't have the chops to do it. I've always said I never wanted an Elvis black belt. You know, I never wanted somebody to give me a black belt just without
Sure,
earning it.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember one weekend, it was like around about 5 or 6 years ago. So I'd been doing comedy about 15 years. And in the same weekend, I had to follow Joe Rogan, Bill Burr, and Fahim Anwar when he was doing his Lance Kenstopoulos character, like this ridiculous, larger-than-life character. And I was like, thank God I have 15 years of experience, because if I had to follow these guys, and if I had to follow them and they didn't like me, like, one of the things about the Comedy Store is we work tag team.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Joe just giving me the nicest introduction ever, and Bill giving me the nicest introduction ever. If they wanted to say, like, follow that, it would have been impossible. It would have been impossible. But, like, you stick around for 15 years, people sort of at least respect your work ethic, if not your craft. And you need those chops. You need that stuff to know you belong.
Yeah,
To know you
definitely.
belong.
Definitely, because it's easy to bomb when your nerves eat you up alive, when you're like, oh no, look at the crowd, you know, especially if you're watching before, like you're sitting there watching a Bill Burr just murder everyone in the room.
Murder.
And you just start shaking like, I'm not that funny. I'm not that funny. There's no way.
I watch people and I know there's no way I'm as funny as those guys, but at least now when I bomb, it doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm like, I bombed 1,000 times before, I'll bomb 1,000 times again.
Yeah,
you start
man.
to accept that that's it. That's part of the process.
Well, you were mentioning how you think that musicians are cooler or whatever, and musicians are also feel the same way about comedians. I think there's a nice connection there that we all have to eat crow for many years. Like bands usually have to play in front of no one, just 3 people, and like you're giving it your all. Especially if you're like in a heavy metal band or something like that. Like you're out there just headbanging and going crazy for no one. At the end of it, you expect this, like, in your head, you're like, all right, we finished the song, and then there's like crickets,
nothing.
And it's like, fuck, that's the equivalent of bombing, or like, to go back to what you were saying about opening for someone like a Rogan or whatever, opening up a music show for like a big headliner, like let's say, like we opened up for Static X, which, they aren't that huge or whatever, but they have their following, and we don't sound anything like them. So we're on stage giving it our all. The room is packed because it's a sold out show, but nobody's there to see us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody's just waiting for us to finish, and we'll get a couple golf claps or whatever. But that to me was the equivalent of bombing, where it's like, well, they're not getting it. They're here for someone else.
You just have to learn how to emotionally distance yourself from the outcome. I think the arts will teach you that if you stay in the game long enough, you will learn to emotionally distance yourself from the outcome. Where you go,
well, I think
it's not going to stop me.
I think that's why we have so many issues with like mental health, like comedians and musicians alike, where you learn to distance yourself from emotions and feelings, because otherwise you get crushed. And that constant battle in your head, like. You hear, going back to wrestling, you hear Jim Ross talk, which...
my God! Like the great JR is the greatest.
He's the greatest, but you hear interviews with him where he's saying that he's constantly, like, shaming himself, like he's not good enough, and
that
like he has a hard time.
Heart.
Yeah, like he has issues just kind of accepting that he's good at his job. You know what I mean?
I think there's a way where you can be, like, truly humble, meaning... When it goes great, you realize that's sort of like divinely inspired, and when it doesn't go great, it's sort of divinely inspired, and the performance isn't you. And I think it took me a long time to sort of be like, hey man, comedy's my job, and it's a beautiful, fun job, but my family loves me, my friends love me, I have a positive impact on my community outside of what happens on the stage. So it's not the end-all, be-all. But one of the bits I am working on, just about the culture of Los Angeles, because no wonder why it's as selfish. Well, it was, I think, once we get through this pandemic. I think we're going to see I think it's going to be beautiful. Because I think the only way we get through this is together, you know? And I think it's teaching us really important lessons. But from a comedic perspective, like LA is a city of people that moved from everywhere else, that packed up their car and their lives, moved out here by themselves by and large, to show everybody in their small town, like, one day you'll regret not being nice to me, you know? So like, of course, there's a lot of unhappy people that move here.
Yeah.
But the beauty is, like, if you find your crew of misfits, like, I came to the Comedy Store and I finally felt like I had a home of like-minded people. It was class clowns and people that comedy was the love of their life. We all found each other, and comedy became, you talk about everything being like identity politics now, but the beautiful thing about being a comedian is, like, you don't think about somebody's race or their political beliefs or their sexual, like, whatever you are, you're a comic first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I'm not like, oh, that's my Latino friend comedian. You're like, no, that's Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, there's my no, I'm like, no, that's Fortune. Like, they're just my friends. I don't think about any of the stuff the world sees first. As comics, we don't see that first. We go, that's just my brother or sister in comedy. And I think I'm so grateful to have that, man. Like, I'm so grateful to have that unspoken bond with comedians, because growing up doing comedy, I thought comedy was so amazing. I never thought anybody that grew up normal was allowed to do it. You know, I thought like somebody had to give you permission to say, you're going to go have a special life or an extraordinary life. Right. I didn't know you could just start at an open mic and be cool to people, and 20 years later, you're paying your bills with it. And I'm beyond grateful for that.
That's
It's been a hell of a ride, man. It's been such a crazy, awesome, fun ride.
That's a lot of years to put in, man. And, you know, it still has that kind of air of you kind of have to be messed up to be a comedian. Like, I see that often where people say that.
You know what? I think that's what Tony Robbins would call a limiting belief. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying my best to break that stereotype. Because if you had to be messed up to be a comedian, then everybody would be a comedian, because we're all broken in our own ways.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Everybody is. And the reason why comedians can find humor, the reason why people laugh at that stuff is because everybody in the audience relates to it.
Yeah.
We're all human. And there's such a negative connotation with that. But I go, oh, how beautiful is this? How beautiful is this brokenness that we share? And if we can put our egos to the side and just accept each other where we are and work together and try to bring more love and positivity and connection, we're all going to be good, you know? Yeah. And I think there's something magical about laughter. There's something divine about it, where like we are connecting in that moment together, and you're not thinking about you could be on stage talking about something negative or something positive. That outside world doesn't really exist outside of that connection we've all created in the room. And that's why I encourage everybody, if you like comedy, if you listen to podcasts, you watch Netflix specials, great, but go see it live. Because when you go see it live, you're part of it. It's an experience.
And
it's
depending
an experience that we need.
Yeah, and depending on the comedian, you know, they do crowd work, so you could be part of it for real.
For real. Well, no matter what, I feel like the energy of the audience dictates what's going to happen with this show. And I mean, and you're kind of like the ringleader as the guy on stage, and you have to use all the tools and tricks in your bag to try to get them in a for me, my style, a happy, positive, cool place. But I can't do anything without them willing to come along. Right? And there are nights, and even after 20 years, I'll be on stage at the Comedy Store and I go, these are the cool kids. They don't want to hear about pizza and brothers and fun stuff in life. They're not my crowd. And it doesn't mean I stop trying, and it doesn't mean, but sometimes you just go, hey man, if Metallica went out on stage in front of Toto's audience would not think Metallica was good.
Right, yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah, it's that same concept I said about just they're not there for you, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
And that is what drew me to your comedy, man. Like I honestly, no offense to you, I know you've been working 20 years, but I found out about you at the store. Just going at
nobody knows who I am yet, dude. It's awesome.
just going there every week and seeing you do a set, and I'm like, he's so wholesome and fun and happy. Everybody else here is talking about like, inappropriate things, which is funny because I like inappropriate things.
Me
But it was
too.
such a refreshing thing to like walk into the O room and see you like talking. I'm like, wow. And then I just went home and YouTube. I'm like, all right, I get it.
Yeah,
So,
I'm going to try to put more stuff out there on YouTube. I have buddies working on editing. I just want to put it all out there and just sort of give the world my version of a hug.
Now's the time. Now's the
For
time.
sure.
For what do you think? What do you think is going to happen right after quarantine? Do you think everybody's going to rush out to go hang out at the store? Do you think it's going to be like
I hope
a couple of weeks? I think it'll take some time before people feel comfortable.
Logically, I think what'll happen is it'll sort of scale back to normal. Like logically, I think they might say you can get 15 in a room or 50 and then 100. I think it may do that. But I don't know what the transition to normal will be like. But once we get back to quote unquote normal and people can go to a comedy club and laugh, it's going to be amazing.
That'd be great.
It's going to be amazing. Like, I was on stage. The last time I was on stage, it was right before any of this lockdown quarantine stuff was official. And the comedy store had already closed down. And I did a show at the Ice House. And I wasn't sure if, like, I started to get messages like, what are you doing? You have to be at home. And I was like, I didn't know. And I was just like, I'm trying to figure out what's the right thing to do. But I was like, if they're legally saying we can do this, and the club at the Ice House was like, we're going to separate everybody by distances and whatever. My point being, my last time on stage was before things really got messed up. And that audience was so receptive to somebody trying to make them laugh that it was magic. Like I remember Joey Diaz talking about an athlete he was making laugh years and years ago. And the athlete had been through some public hardships, because how can I say this? Sometimes the people society says are really cool. I think cool is a dangerous word because I think, people that have that are in that fast lane are sometimes really sad deep down. They're sad. Mm-hmm. And, I remember Joey talking about this guy, and Joey was making him laugh so hard he had tears coming out of his eyes. And he was like, Steve Simeone, he was laughing because he needed it. I could tell that he needed it. So I just kept on trying to give him that hug. And I was like, and that was I was probably managing the Comedy Store at the time he told me that story. And I went, okay, that's our job, is to not just make people laugh, but to make them feel better about life. And that was the approach I took a long time ago. Like so many comedians point out what's wrong, but I was trying to go, okay, but what's good? What's the best stuff in life? Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm trying to do.
That's what honestly, as I've gotten older, that's what I've been doing too. Like I used to be kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I would be that guy on the internet, like, fuck this movie, I don't like this, I don't like that. But as I've grown older, I'm just like, now it seems like everyone's doing that. If you any kind of entertainment, like Game of Thrones season finale was the worst thing ever, and like, oh, this movie is the worst thing ever, and it's like the populace is kind of, I guess it's cool, if you want to look at the silver lining, it's fun that they are united in their hatred.
And I know what you're saying.
And I always give them, I'm like, hey man, you want to hate it? Good for you. You got some buddies. You guys get together and hate on it. Fine. But I honestly, I've gotten past that point where if I don't like it, I'm just going to move on. I don't need to tell people that I don't like it.
Exactly. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, and I'll just put out like, hey, this show was great if you want to watch it with me. And then the second somebody's like, oh, that show's garbage, I'm like, okay, I block.
That's your opinion, man. Okay, yeah, I don't fight with people. No, I'm just like, all right.
Well, I don't block. I unfollow. That's what I do. Like, I don't need to see your
I don't need that
noise.
I don't need that negativity in my life.
Yeah.
I have such limited energy that I don't even have the time or energy to respond to that. Like we've been trying to set this up for what, 3 months?
Yeah.
And we've been locked down for a month. That's how busy I am. I don't have time. And I used to hear people say that, and I thought it was an expression like, I don't have time for that. And I thought that was them saying like, hey, there's other things in my life I'd rather focus on. I'm at a point now in my life where I literally do not have the time for that.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, that doesn't even exist to me. Next, goodbye. Like, I'm too busy trying to write and create and sell and collaborate for any of that silliness. And oftentimes, I think people that do live in that negativity they're just profoundly unhappy. And I'm going to share. This is a real story that that happened maybe a week or two ago, because all the time's blending together.
Yeah.
But I started taking because I'm also in the food. I'm a chubby dude, and I learned over the years how to cook the food that I like the most. Because I grew up in suburban Philadelphia, so we have certain regional things that just aren't available here. Like certain Italian American style comfort food that they don't make it here. So one of the things I love, like a good roast pork sandwich. And I had to learn how to make that myself. So about 2 weeks ago, I made a roast pork, and I took a picture of it. And I was taking pictures of the baked ziti I was making, the lasagnas, the pizzas. And I shared this picture of roast pork, and 99 of the comments were great. And one was really angry. And it was this guy that had said, look at this out of touch celebrity showing off his banquet when the rest of us are starving. He's so tone deaf. I wish he would have rather have tried to sing Imagine. That made me laugh. And two things in there, I was like, okay, this dude is funny because I hated that Imagine song. And it made me laugh thinking that he thought that I was a celebrity, because I'm not. But it hurt my feelings, because the only reason I hate social media. And the only reason why I'm posting more now is to try to remind everybody of the little things we can do together that are going to get us through this. So he was showing off his banquet when most of us are trying to, normally I would have just ignored it, but it was the first thing I checked when I got out of bed. I wasn't even out of bed. It was the first thing I checked when I woke up. And I was just like, what's this guy? I go, this thing, it cost me, that's $9 worth of food. I bought the piece of pork for $9. So I go, this cost me $9. And immediately this angry guy shoots back, oh, whatever. And I went, yeah, you're right. With the beans surrounding 4 cans of beans, it was $13. I go, dude, you got me wrong. I'm not trying to make it. I go, I'm just trying to show you what can be done, the simple pleasures in life that we can still celebrate. I go, it cost me $13. I fed some of my neighbors, and I'm not a celebrity. And then he said something back, and he went, I'm sorry for this and that, but it was still this and this. So he stepped back a little bit. And then I was like, I said something to him, and then he said something else. Then I followed him on Twitter, and then he followed me back. And then as soon as he followed me back, I sent him a message, and I went, dude, what if we became best friends? Right? And he thought that was funny. And then we started to exchange, and he was like, I'm just in a really angry place. And he was like, but I always wanted to do stand-up comedy. And I'm like, wait a second. That's something I can help with. I'm like, these are your first steps, and I'll shepherd you through this process. Because that's one of the things that I know I have very few skills in life. But I've been doing comedy for 20 years. And at the very least, I can provide my emotional support through that journey and sort of tell you, be like Mickey to Rocky. I could be like, okay, this is the psychology of an open mic, and this is what the club's going to expect of you when you get to open a show. And this is how you handle yourself in the green room. And these are the opportunities that are going to take your career to the next level. And this is how this club works. And this. So I feel this is how you're going to put together a set. This is how you're going to prepare for TV. I know all that stuff. And it makes me feel good to share what I know to help somebody else realize their dream. So I was like, this started off as an angry encounter on Twitter that I normally would have ignored. But I'm so thankful that I through the grace of God, I didn't ignore it, and now I made a friend. And who knows, this dude could wind up being the next great comedian, and I might have something. Even if he doesn't, it's not like he has to become Bill Hicks or something and use his anger as But if I just made somebody's day, and get them through an open mic, and they got to say they did comedy, and I helped them with it, it's a blessing.
Yeah, it's I think it happened for a reason. I'm one of those people that believes everything happens for a reason. And I don't know what reason that may be. Some people say it's God, or some people say it's whatever, the universe.
Yeah,
right. Because in my mentality, like when you said that he messaged you that, I just pictured him on his phone, like waiting for your response.
Probably.
He's got to say something. And that's what most of the internet troll type people, that's what they're doing. They're saying something that they know is inflammatory, that's going to trigger a reaction from you.
And that's pretty sad in a lot of ways. Like if you're just spreading negativity because you want negative attention is better than no attention. Mm-hmm. What are we doing here? Like, I think this whole Corona thing is a wake-up call from God. I think he told the whole world, go to your room and think about what you've done. Because really, that's what's happened to all of us. And I'm grateful for all the time I've had to really think. And how are we living, man? Mm-hmm. Like, we're living wrong. We've chased the wrong things. And it's time to be better people.
I hope that message, like I get that same message. I feel that this was a good, it was good. Like I said at first, like the first 3 weeks, I'm like, yeah, I needed this break, and now I'm kind of like, I want to go out. But, but it was still a necessary kind of like, whoa, slow down. You guys are, going really fast. But the people that need to do that are the people that, like, the people in power, like the presidents and the senators. I don't do politics, so I don't really know.
Neither do I.
But those are the people that need to hopefully get this message too. Like the common folk, I kind of expect it. Like I'll be disappointed if you get out of this.
Yeah, but my dad always used to say, and now as I'm an adult, it makes sense. He would always say, "We get the leaders we deserve."
That's true. I said that about Trump the second he got elected. People were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." I'm like, we're a reality TV nation. Do you not think we deserve a reality TV star as president? Because I mean, it makes sense to me. I'm not a supporter. I don't do, like I said, I don't do politics at all. But it makes sense to me that he's I'm like, yeah, of course he is. It's a mirror to the nation. Like everybody's watching reality TV and expecting this like crazy and to a fault. I love pro wrestling. I mean, the guy's in the Hall of Fame. Makes sense.
That's awesome.
Donald
Dude, he
Trump
can cut a promo.
Yeah.
Say whatever you want about Trump, but he can definitely cut a promo.
Dude, he took a stunner. He shaved McMahon's head. The guy's an entertainer, and we're a nation that consumes entertainment, right? That's pretty much all we do. When you look at social media, all they're doing is, I'm binging this show, or I'm watching this, and I watched this entire season of this, and that's all we want. That's all people want. I enjoy as well to consume. This little quarantine break has given me time to catch up on all the shows I've wanted to see. Yeah. But also, I think it's important that we create stuff.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
Not everyone's creative, and maybe not everything is like go make music. Like it's not conventional. It's not like this is what you have to do. Like no, just go do what you do.
That's a lesson that's definitely been. I've such an appreciation now for the differences between people and the beautiful. Each one of us is so beautifully unique that there's certain things that are just come natural to people. Yep. They can just do it, and I think that is incredible. That is absolutely incredible. That there are people that can listen to my car and tell me what's wrong with it. They're like, you could try this, this, and this, but my guts tell me it's this. Here, get out of the way. Let me show. Yeah, this wire was loose. You don't need a water pump. What you need to do is just tighten this. And I'm like, how did you do that? And I think if we all take the time to become the best versions of ourselves, if we all take that like what I did with comedy and not give up. If you do that with your talents, your skills, and put the same amount of effort into being a teacher, to being a mechanic, to just being the fun guy at the office, like who knows how God's going to use you in your presence somewhere, but you matter. We all need each other. Like, how amazing is this, that all of the people society put up on their shoulders and said we're better than everybody, and it comes down to the stock boy at a supermarket meaning more to society than anything right now. All the unsung heroes, all the truck drivers, all the cash register people, and the constant heroes, your doctors, your nurses, your first responders, your military people. Like, thank God that, like, I still stand in awe that there are people out there that are just so brave. They're brave. Like, I'm a coward by nature. Like, even my sister-in-law is she's a pharmacist. And she works at a hospital, and she was calling me because I'm up late. She was calling me driving home from a graveyard, not a second shift position. And she's got kids, you know? And I'm like, couldn't you just, and she's working part-time because she's a full-time mom. I'm like, couldn't you just give somebody else your hours? You know, because it's like, who knows how this disease really works? And she goes, Steve, I took an oath. She goes, I took an oath to help people. And I'm like, you're a superhero. I was like, you know, it's amazing.
Great. It's great that people still do that. That's still that's what gives me hope in humanity. Because sometimes,
for sure,
yeah, like
even
sometimes
when I see the security guard at Ralph's, some guy that's probably making a minimum wage, but he's there literally on the front lines, putting up with people's anger all day long and telling people they have to get in line and separate out. Like, he gets his balls broken, but he's keeping that place going for all of us. I mean, there are amazing people in this world, man.
Yeah,
amazing people.
Yeah, and it's hard to lose sight of it, you know, because you're surrounded by so much negativity and all. Like, thankfully now, like, you know, it's just people seem to be positive, but right before all this quarantine stuff, it was so negative. Everybody,
it was toxic.
Like the country was like split in half, and people were, if you're not this side, you're on that side. If you're not with me, you're against me, and like,
and I've never had that mentality. Yeah. I've always been, I think, because I'm a middle child, honestly. Okay. I think I've had to figure out sort of like to listen before I spoke, and what do I have in common here? How can I make peace?
Yeah. I got to give it to you, man. You've managed to, like I said, be a beacon of light and positivity in all the darkness. I am blown away that you have that relationship in the Comedy Store, because it's not a negative place, but it's a dark place. Like, just by nature, the walls are black, you know? So
yeah, man. Yeah.
I go there because I want to laugh. I want to have it's a positive reason to go.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, I want to go because I want to hear how far some people are going to push it. Like, Tony Hinchcliffe, for example, is like,
love that dude.
Every time I see his sets, I'm just like, oh my God, here we go.
He kills me.
Oh God, here we go. And like, I don't know how people don't see that. How they don't see that, like, shining light in the dark, as I was trying to say. Like,
whatever, man.
I don't know.
I have the best friends in the world.
You do.
Like, one of the things that I just feel so blessed about is the friends I have. And like, I remember Tony when he was an open mic comic. And I remember picking him up. He was living in I don't know how big of a place it was, but I know a lot of comics live there. And I know he did not have a car. And we drove to La Jolla. I think it may have been his first legit road gig. And we got to do the Comedy Store in San Diego. And he was just as Argus would say, he was just a pup. I remember when he was just a pup. And to see this kid, obvious God-given talent, okay? That's an obvious.
Yeah.
But the work ethic, and to see what he's accomplished in such a short amount of time, I couldn't be more proud. Like, it makes, when I see my friends succeed, it's even better than me succeeding, because I don't want to deal with the pressure. You know, I would not want to be at a level where people are breaking my balls and expecting too much from me. And to see that kid not only be so successful, but I know he's going to be this is still the beginning for him.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be a literal huge star. But what I'm most proud of is look at how many mouths that kid is feeding. Look at how many people he's bringing along for the ride.
Yep.
And to see somebody become kinder and more giving as they're progressing, as they're becoming more of a star, is a beautiful thing. And I wish him nothing but more success. Because the more successful he gets, the more success he's going to spread to everybody. Yeah. And I mean, that's everything. That's how you live life.
Yeah. Then I don't like to give him more reasons to blow more smoke, but but the format of his show, that show, it's like school for comedians. They're going up there to practice. They're going up there to get lessons. Obviously some people get up there and they're just there for attention, and he sees it immediately and dismisses them. But a lot of the time you're going up there to get better. And there's people that, get up there and they do their minute or whatever, and they end up becoming stars, the regulars that he brings on, like Ali Makowski, is like opening up for Rogan. So it's like school, and
it's awesome.
And like you said, his work ethic too, like just the Storecade thing you were a part of. You came out to the intro. How insane is it to see a wrestling ring in the store?
Ever since around that time, everything sort of seems like a dream.
Yeah.
Where I'm going, like, to see a wrestling ring in the main room of the Comedy Store, I was like, is this real? Is this? And now where I'm like, is it the end of the world? Is this real? Is this, like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I can't wait until they get to do Funny in the Bank or another pro wrestling event live at the Comedy Store. I can't wait for it. It was the coolest thing ever. In so many ways, I just wish Roddy were alive to be a part of it.
Oh man!
But that his daughter was there even made it more special.
Right. She put Tony in a sleeper hold, right?
Yes. And like, dude, to have that, we were talking about that connection between musicians and comics. I think you can lump pro wrestlers in there too.
Yep.
It's such a very similar thing because first and foremost, you get involved with it because you're a fan.
Mm-hmm.
You get involved with it for the love of the game. And maybe the, what's the word? The desire for stardom or the ambition is your rocket fuel to like one day become the biggest star at it. That's enough to get you in the game, but you're not going to stay there unless you truly, truly love it. Like nobody's going to pay those kinds of dues without going, this is who I'm supposed to be. And I have nothing but respect for the people in wrestling because it's sort of like, I'm sick of the road. I'm sick of living out of a suitcase. I don't want to go back to that. But I just tell jokes, man. I can't imagine what it's like to live like that and get beat up.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's that road dog mentality that connects wrestlers to comedians and musicians. Like being on the road all the time. Tell me about Roddy, man. What was your relationship with him? You have one?
Yeah, we're good buddies.
Tell me about that. How'd you meet him at first?
I met him at the Improv on Melrose, and it was January of 2009, maybe.
Wow.
I think. I don't know. I'd have to go look. And Eric Abrams at the time, who's now like a big shot producer, but at the time he was the talent coordinator at the Improv. And my closing bit at the time was about staying awake to midnight to watch pro wrestling with my brothers. So he knew I was a fan. And like my act at the time was just littered with pro wrestling references. So he was like, do you know who this guy is? Would you want to work with him? I was like, yes, please.
Yeah. Yes. Please.
And I remember like my buddy from Philly, my buddy Big Steve Polsonella owns a gym. and he like had competed in the World's Strongest Man and stuff like that. We became friends because we were all wrestling fans. And I remember before I met Roddy, he was like, "Hey man, just be careful of those dudes." He goes, "Those old school wrestlers, they don't play around." He goes, "That guy's a legit badass." So I was scared of that, you know, like a little scared of that. And I was also like, this is the guy that cracked coconuts on Jimmy Superfly Snuka's head. Like, this guy's a bad guy. It's like what I honestly, that's what I was really thinking going into it. And that night when I just saw him there, I can't describe to you, I felt like I was 11 years old again. Like, he had this ability to take grown men and turn you back into a child. Just because you're like, that's him. And it was like, I never really, like, I don't know. It was like seeing a Marvel character brought to life. And it was the show itself wasn't that organized. And we thought Roddy was just going to go on last. But what he wound up doing was hosting the show.
Oh, wow.
So Roddy says my name. I go out on stage and I do my quote unquote wrestling bit I had at the time. And then Roddy, as I'm getting ready to come off stage, he stays on stage with me and asked me a couple questions. He was like, "Did you really do that? Did you and your brothers really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he hugged me. Like, I was like, "What are you doing, dude?" And like, he almost pet me like a dog. Like, that was like one of the, like, Roddy was like a sweet dad. And that was the coolest thing about getting to know this badass legend was Noel, his manager at the time, reached out to me and was like, "Roddy was really impressed with your show. He'd like to see you do comedy again." So then I invited him to the Comedy Store, and I got up really late in the night, and so late in the night that I had forgotten that he was in the audience. That's how late it was.
Wow. Okay.
Like, I mean, I knew he was there, and I wanted to make sure he got there on time and he stayed and watched the whole show and all that stuff. But like, now I'm just going out on stage, and like, my style of comedy is very much, it has to be in the moment. And there was not enough people in the room for me to do my wrestling bit or any of the material he had seen before. And I wound up telling a story about my niece, my baby niece. And then I'm in the middle of the bit and I go, "Why are you telling this story with WWE Hall of Famer Roddy Piper? He's going to think there's..." And then I didn't realize that he had 3 little girls.
Wow,
So
okay.
when I got off stage, he was like, "You're my guy." And I didn't realize that like that's what he lived for, was his kids. And so imagine being a lifelong fan. Imagine literally at one point, the last $20 I spent on a Roddy Piper Hot Rod t-shirt at the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony.
Nice.
Bret Ernst and I in 2005, April of 2005, went to the Hall of Fame when it was at Universal Amphitheater.
Nice.
And our seats were so bad we could touch the ceiling. That's
Okay.
not like comedic. We were
Those
like the
bleeds.
last row, but there was nobody for 8 rows in front of us, so we moved down.
Okay.
We could touch the ceiling. And then with my last $20, I bought a Hot Rod t-shirt. And now just a couple years later, I go meet Roddy at the Comedy Store during the day to help him put together a stand-up act. And the manager would turn on the stage lights for us so he could get comfortable on stage in the comedy club. And I would sit in the front row and just ask him questions and help him work out his stories.
That's
and we
crazy.
did that for a solid year before we took it on the road, and then we co-hosted a podcast together.
Wow.
And I got to hang out with him. I got to train with him in the gym a little bit. He showed me how to throw a jab. I mean, the coolest stuff ever.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing.
Truly amazing.
Yeah.
And then to meet some of his buddies.
Yeah.
Like, he brought Bret the Hitman Hart to the Comedy Store. He brought Sergeant Slaughter to the Comedy Store. I got to give a ghost tour once to him and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And this is no lie. And I'm telling this story about where there was like a ghost experience and the door just shuts. I didn't touch it. Roddy didn't touch it. And the door just shuts, and it shuts on Hacksaw. Roddy and I look at each other like, what happened? And we open the door, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan's on the other side of the door going, I don't know about that one, Hot Rod, but that was pretty weird. And I'm like, how does this happen? How does this kid that grew up loving pro wrestling become friends, legitimate friends, with arguably the greatest to ever do it? And I mean, and people go, like, I talk about God a lot because God's blessed me beyond belief. To me, that's a miracle. There's no way that happens outside of divine intervention.
Right.
I mean, you're talking. I mean, Roddy Piper. I mean, there's not anybody in wrestling that doesn't respect the man.
Of course, the guy's a legend.
He's a absolute legend. A real
I
legend.
think he defines that word really, like the word.
Me too.
WWE legend. That's that. You think Piper? You think maybe Flair? But he's still with us. You know?
Yeah, and they were best friends. And like he'd be like, Rick, somebody, like he would like call Ric Flair. I think he did it once outside the House of Blues for me and Bret Ernst, and like we heard Ric Flair. Like they were best buds. Hulk Hogan and Roddy were best friends. Like his kids called Sergeant Slaughter Uncle Bob. I got to meet Uncle Bob. Like, and the thing that as a wrestling fan that I found fascinating about Roddy was he was trained by the generation before him. So he really lived it. Like he knew all about the territories and stuff like that. And to get pro wrestling history lessons from that guy and have him just open up his life like an open book so we could sort of, because I think what he was really working towards was a one-man show. And so we were finding comedic beats in a lot of the stories he was telling, and it's a miracle. I can't believe that happened.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. Yeah. I don't think I've had experiences, but not at that level. Like that's just insane.
It was insane.
That's insane. I did. Did you meet Rick when during that time at all, Ric Flair?
No. You know how I met Ric Flair?
When?
One of my many day jobs during I probably had legitimately 2 day jobs. I was working 2 jobs for maybe my first 10, 12 years in LA.
Okay.
And one of my day jobs was I would work at the pro shop or behind the counter at Gold's Gym in Venice.
Okay.
And I was doing that, like to do checking IDs. I would stack all the drinks in the coolers and stuff like that. Then I was the guy that would like make sure you scanned your card. So there was a kid, I was like 30 at the time, and there was a kid like 18 at the time. And Ric Flair comes in, complete gentleman, not like in character, just complete gentleman.
Right.
And he's like, no, I don't have a card. They gave me some sort of legend account. Maybe you could look up my name somehow. And this kid's like, dude, I'm sorry, I can't let you work out. And out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, no. So I was like, no, he's okay. And Ric Flair's looking at me like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to lie. I go, sir, I know who you are. And he goes, you do? And I was like, yes, sir. I'm trying my best to keep it down right now. He's like, so you're a fan? And I just went, huge fan. Woo! Like that. Like I didn't overdo it. I was trying to keep professional. And so I think it may have been Charlotte, because at the time I thought it was his girlfriend, but I think it may have been his daughter. So I let them come in and without paying, obviously, because he's a legend, and that is part of the okay. So then he goes to work out, and then he's like, "Do you have a safe or something back there to hold this?" And goes into his pocket and had like 10 grand in cash. Takes off his gold Rolex, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And he goes, "This is the Rolex Shawn Michaels gave me when I retired." I was like, "What?" And he goes, he goes like this. He goes, "Why don't you wear it for me and keep it safe?" So the whole time Ric Flair worked out, I got to wear his gold Rolex. I bought him a bottle of water. Oh yeah, he let me do that after. I was like, "You don't need to pay for a drink, sir." And he was like, "Really?" I go, it would be my honor to buy you guys some waters. So then he let me wear his gold Rolex. I held on to his money for him. And then Nico down there that ran the pro shop would always give celebrities free stuff because it was good advertising for Golds. So there was like a big corporate meeting going on, and Rick wanted a T-shirt, and I ran up and I barged into the corporate meeting. I'm like, "Guys, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to know if I can give free clothes to Ric Flair." And I'm not lying. So they're like, of course, and everybody laughed because they knew like what a huge wrestling fan I was and how I was marking out like a dork. So now I'm carrying all the free clothes for Ric Flair out to his car, and I'm not exaggerating. He legitimately had a stretch limousine pick him up at Gold's Gym, and I'm like, this is as good as life gets.
Living the gimmick, man.
Yeah, so I did get to meet Rick, but I never got to meet him with Roddy because I think that would have been the best night ever.
Yeah. I mean, I know Roddy used to drink, and Rick still drinks to this day, so that would have been a very long night of drinking, I think.
Well, you know what was cool? When I got to meet Roddy, he was sober. And I think that was kind of like divine intervention. Because like I have booze in my apartment, but I don't do that's just in case people come over. Like I got drunk at the Comedy Store Christmas party, and I'm still embarrassed for what I said and did. So I'm not gonna I don't ever want to drink again. Like I'd much rather have a cupcake than booze. That's my drug. Yeah, is cookies, cakes, pizza.
I've managed to, I had a career in alcohol sales for a long time, and I've perfected the amount of alcohol I should drink around people. You know what I mean? When I'm home. Yeah. Like if it's my weekend and I don't have to work tomorrow, I'm probably drinking a whole bottle of sake or something. Like I'm going to town.
I can't handle it. Handle it. And the thing that I hated about drinking, like it would make me lie. Like people say, "Oh, you get drunk and you tell the truth." I'm like, no, I don't. I just want people to like me. I tell drunk lies. If I bench pressed 135 pounds, guys, I was benching 250 yesterday, and it's like, what are you doing? Yeah. And then just the older I got, my body can't process it. I'll be hungover for a day. Oh yeah, not a day, 3 days.
Yeah, there's that. Horrible. There's that too. I used to do when I was working in the industry, I was drinking every day because I was selling beer. So I was visiting like 10 to 15 restaurants or bars a day. Just driving to them or whatever. And I would go to the bar and I'd show up with my cooler. Like, hey man, this is what I got this week. New beers, check them out. You need this, and this, and I think you should try this. And he's like, well, let's try it. I'm sitting there. I'm like, all right, let's try it. Just a little, like an ounce. Yeah. Try it. Yeah, good stuff, right? Good stuff. Cool. But that 15 times a day.
That adds up, bro.
You know what I mean? And then, on the weekends, it was like, oh, well, this weekend I have a beer dinner or I have a tap takeover where, they're putting on 30 of my beers. So I got to go represent, and I have a limitless fucking credit card where I can just, buy everybody drinks and let's do this.
All right, let me run this by you because I have no idea how old you are, but I just want to see if my experience resonates at all to you. Okay. The older I'm getting, like, I'm so grateful to have done comedy and all the experiences I've had. But the older I get, the more appealing a very simple life sounds to me. Like, I kind of feel like I got it all out of my system, man. Like, yeah, when I was in my 20s, I drank a lot. I wanted to be Chris Farley. I wanted to be the life of the party. And now I'm like, if I could get 8-9 hours sleep, wake up, work out, we're getting donuts. Like, that's all I want out of life. That's it. Like a simple, quiet life.
Well, I hear you.
Does that make any sense?
No, I hear you. I'm kind of in between. So I'm not. I used to party a lot. Not just when I was doing the beer sales, but before that when I was in the band for
you're a rock star, dude.
Yeah. It was a lot. It was
that expression come party like a rock star that happened for a reason.
It's true, man. It's true. It was every day. It was go out, and we were, and I was living this weird life where I was in a big house in the middle of we had 3 acres of land, the band, and we had a house in the middle of 3 acres of land. So we would just have these massive parties every weekend. Every weekend there'd be 150 people at the house, cars parked everywhere. We'd have people wrestling. We'd have people doing keg stands and then bands performing, like all this madness. But now, like, I don't want any of that anymore. I miss it.
That sounds like a nightmare to me. Like at 22, I'd be like, yes.
Yeah. Right.
But now in my 40s, I'm like, dude.
Yeah. I'm 38, turning 39. So
I figured you were younger. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, I watched the videos and I'm like, all right, I miss that. Those were really good times, but I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. I don't want to be there anymore. I don't want to be the singer in a band anymore. Like that's kind of you know, if the opportunity, like, you know, a big band's like, hey, we need a singer, and we'll pay you. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. But being in this, like, you know, independent band, that's, to me, that's over. But I still have an urge to do something.
Yeah.
And like the podcast being one of the things, but there's more. Like I have more ideas. I'm shows that I want to do.
Yeah,
And
being creative is great.
right. I want to do comedy, but the thing that comes with that is also you have to be
Anything
out.
I can do to help you with comedy, let me know.
For sure, for sure,
For sure.
But the thing is, it requires you to be out, right?
Yeah.
Like being in the comedy scene, and or anything, like anything that I've done so far is because I've gone to the store every week.
Yeah.
To hang out, and sometimes it's like I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, well, it's 12. I should probably go home. Going home sounds real nice to the wife and relaxing and having the simple life. I guess I want it.
Yeah.
I also know the responsibility of I have to be here right now to put some work in. You know?
Yeah, you are sacrificing now to get what you want ultimately, and I respect that. It's delayed gratification.
Right.
And that's necessary for anything you want to do in life. Look, buddy, my mom was just calling me. I just want to just call her right back before she goes to sleep. Is that okay?
Yeah, no worries, dude. We have an hour and 5. We're good. We're
awesome.
Good. Yeah. The only thing I wanted, I only wanted to talk about if you saw WrestleMania at all. That was the only thing I had.
No. And you know what? I would love you to like be my tutor to get me back into the product.
Okay.
Because I've had a lifelong love affair with pro wrestling. But it ebbs and flows depending on the storylines, and I'm not going to be negative. It's just that recently, not recently, for a while now, I've just been like, I've tried to stay a fan, but my life's gotten so busy that I need some reasons to tune back in. And one, for sure, is I want to see what my buddy Johnny LaQuasto's been doing, because I know he now works for the WWE, so I want to see his shows. But look, buddy, thank you so much for letting me hang out. I got to go call my mom.
Do your thing,
the biggest
man.
dork thing ever.
All right, do your thing. Love you too, brother. Take care.
All right, take care. Bye.
Yeah.